All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the delay. Thank you for taking the time out of your day today to be here with us. My name is Nathan Fish, and I'm a senior environmental scientist at the California State Water Resources Control Board. This is one of 4 public scoping meetings we're holding to provide an opportunity for feedback on the notice of preparation of an environmental impact report for the Potter Valley Hydroelectric Project surrender and decommissioning. Please note this meeting is being transcribed by a court reporter, Spencer over here, and the transcript will be posted to our website in the coming weeks. So let me introduce the State Water Board team we have here today. So we have Allison Rabe on the end here in the Office of Chief Counsel, the attorney on this project. Next to her, we have Aaron Ragazzi, one of our assistant deputy directors in the Division of Water Rights. Next to her, we have Parker Thaler, our environmental program manager in the Water Quality Certification Program. To my right, we have Wilhelmina Chan, the environmental scientist and project manager for this project. And on the back, we have Dana Heinrich in the Office of Chief Counsel. So what's the plan for today? So in a few minutes, I'm going to hand things over to Wilhelmina, who will provide some background information on the State Water Board and water quality certifications. Then we'll provide a brief overview of the California Environmental Quality Act process and how the public can provide input. Then we'll walk through an overview of the Potter Valley Hydroelectric Project and PG&E's surrender application. Next, we'll discuss how everyone can stay informed in the State Water Board's process. And finally, we'll open the floor to receive verbal comments from any meeting participants here today. Next slide. So a couple meeting logistics before we get started. For those in the room, if you go through the doors you came in, go to your left, there are bathrooms around the corner. Over there, there's also some water if you need it. In the event of an emergency, please go through these doors, to your right, downstairs, out the front door, and meet in Cesar Chavez Cesar Chavez Park. Once we get the all clear, we'll come back and reconvene the meeting. A couple more meeting logistics. So today's a hybrid meeting. If you're joining in person, please silence all electronic devices for the duration of the meeting. Please respect all speakers and their points of view. Everyone's taken time out of their day to be here today. As a reminder, today's meeting is being recorded by a court reporter who will provide a transcript of the meeting on our website in the coming weeks, along with the presentation we go through today. If anyone is having trouble seeing the presentation in the room, please flag one of us down. We have a couple printed copies available if you need it. And lastly, please save all public comments until the end of the presentation and we open things up for public comment. So with that, I'll hand things over to Wilhelmina.
All right, thanks, Nathan. So, hello, my name is Wilhelmina Chan, and I'm an environmental scientist in the Division of Water Rights and project manager for Potter Valley. So, why is the State Water Board involved? The State Water Board has authority over water rights and water quality in California. Our mission is to preserve, enhance, and restore the quality of California's water resources, as well as protect and allocate water for many beneficial uses. We are here today because Section 401 of the Clean Water Act requires that any applicant seeking a federal license or permit where the proposed activity may result in a discharge to surface water is required to obtain a water quality certification from the State Water Board. The State Water Board conditions hydroelectric projects via water quality certifications to ensure the protection of the state's waters. Now I'd like to go over water quality certifications and how they are related to the federal license surrender order. Water quality certifications focus on protecting water quality and the beneficial uses of water. If a water quality certification is issued, the conditions in it become a mandatory part of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission or FERC license or surrender order for the project. Water quality certifications ensure that a project will comply with water quality objectives and beneficial uses as outlined in the Regional Water Quality Control Plans, also known as basin plans. In this case, the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Plans as adopted by the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board. Certifications must also include conditions to ensure compliance with water quality control policies and other applicable requirements of state law. For example, the certification will require compliance with the board's dredge or fill procedures to ensure protection of state waters, including wetlands. PG&E plans to apply for a water quality certification for its proposed project. The State Water Board is non-positional and will act on the application for water quality certification that we anticipate receiving. However, before the State Water Board can issue a water quality certification, it must first comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, which I'll cover in a little bit. In addition, the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board adopted the policy in support of restoration in the North Coast region on January 29, 2015. The restoration policy states that the boards may permit or certify restoration projects that result in significant and sometimes unavoidable impacts if it is shown that the project will result in long-term protection of beneficial uses and water quality. Under the restoration policy, temporary exceedances in turbidity, temperatures, or other water quality objectives in project-affected water bodies can be authorized as long as it is shown that the project will result in long-term protection of beneficial uses and water quality objectives. And that leads us to the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. CEQA informs the State Water Board and the public about the proposed project's potentially significant environmental effects and ways to avoid, minimize, or mitigate those impacts. Since PG&E is not a public agency, the State Water Board will be the lead agency for CEQA and will prepare the CEQA document. In this case, the State Water Board will be preparing a type of CEQA document called an Environmental Impact Report, or EIR. The CEQA document will be used to support the conditions in the water quality certification for the proposed project. Generally, the State Water Board cannot issue a water quality certification without completing CEQA. The purpose of CEQA scoping is to identify potentially significant environmental impacts associated with the proposed project. Comments received during scoping meetings help determine the scope of environmental review, as well as identify potential project alternatives and mitigation measures for potentially significant impacts that may arise from the project. This flowchart provides a high-level overview of the State Water Board's CEQA process. After an environmental impact report is deemed necessary, the State Water Board conducts meetings, such as this one, to solicit public input to help in the development of the report. When ready, a draft environmental impact report will be released for public comment for a minimum of 45 days. After the public comment period concludes, the State Water Board will then review and respond to any public input that was received. Lastly, the State Water Board will then issue a final environmental impact report for the project. Next, I will provide a brief overview of the Potter Valley project. The Potter Valley project is owned and operated by PG&E and is located on the Eel River and East Branch Russian River in Lake and Mendocino counties. The nearest city is Ukiah, which is approximately 15 miles southwest of the Potter Valley Powerhouse. This is an existing project which is comprised of Scott Dam, Lake Pillsbury, Potter Valley Powerhouse, Cape Horn Dam, Van Arsdale Reservoir, and several recreation areas. Water from the Eel is diverted at Cape Horn Dam and is discharged to the East Branch Russian River. Prior to 2022, PG&E looked for a new owner of the project, but was unable to find one. PG&E made the decision to surrender and decommission the Potter Valley Hydroelectric Project. In May and June of 2022, PG&E, at the request of FERC, filed an initial plan and schedule to submit a surrender and decommissioning plan. PG&E submitted their final surrender application to FERC in July 2025 and intends to apply for a water quality certification. Today's meeting is meant to solicit public input that can inform the development of the State Water Board's CEQA document. Now I will provide an overview of the Potter Valley license surrender and decommissioning project. As part of the proposed project, PG&E is requesting to surrender and decommission the Potter Valley Hydroelectric Project with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. The proposed project involves removal of Scott and Cape Horn dams and associated facilities, followed by restoration of the former lake areas. In addition, PG&E is proposing to leave the diversion facilities in place for future diversions by a different party. I'll cover that in a later slide. Recreational facilities will either be removed, restored, or transferred to another party. Finally, the project includes 41 proposed plans and measures, some of which have been developed and are to be developed, which will be shown on the next slide. PG&E has proposed the following 41 plans and measures as part of their surrender and decommissioning plan. I'm not going over each plan and measure in detail today, but if you'd like more information or the full list of plans, please see the Notice of Preparation issued on September 22nd, 2025. The Notice of Preparation is available on the Potter Valley webpage, and the web address will be shown at the end of the presentation. So CEQA helps us to identify which potentially significant impacts that the project may have. The State Water Board expects that a number of potentially significant impacts may occur as a result of the proposed project. The resources on the slide are part of a preliminary and non-exhaustive list that would be potentially significantly impacted by the project. Please note there is a concurrent project that is separate from PG&E's surrender and decommissioning project that is not a part of this CEQA process. That project is called the New Eel Russian Facility, or NERF, and the Eel Russian Project Authority will be the CEQA lead for that project. The authority is expected to seek a separate water quality certification for the NERF in the future. If you'd like more information, please contact the Eel Russian Project Authority directly.
Thanks, Wilhelmina. Now I'd like to discuss some options to provide comments today. So if you're joining us on Zoom, when we get to the public comment period, please use the raised hand functionality and wait to be called upon before we unmute you. Before providing your comment, we ask that you introduce yourself, spell your name for the court reporter, and any affiliation you may have. If you're in the room today and you wish to provide comments, there are speaker comment cards in the back behind Dana. There's an option there to either provide oral comments or written comments today by not checking the oral comments box. Once you've filled out that card, please flag one of us down and we'll collect those cards. Since we expect multiple people to give comments today, we ask that you keep your comments to the allotted time. Once we get there, we'll let you know how much time you have. And lastly, as a reminder, we're accepting written comments until November 3rd that carry the same weight as any written or oral comments we receive today. So that's always an option. So with that, I will hand things back over to Wilhelmina.
Thanks, Nathan. So the State Water Board is seeking comments on project alternatives, potentially significant impacts, mitigation measures, and anything related to the project to help us in the development of an environmental impact report. We plan to evaluate PG&E's proposed project and a range of alternatives. Any input on specific project alternatives would be helpful. Other comments regarding potential impacts of the project and potential mitigation measures to lessen those impacts would be helpful as well. All public comments submitted by November 3rd, 2025 will be considered. After the draft environmental impact report is released, there will be another public review and comment period to solicit input on that document. So this slide here provides ways to stay informed and stay up to date with the project. The State Water Board will continue to update the Potter Valley Hydroelectric Project webpage with information and filings regarding the CEQA and water quality certification process. The site URL for the Potter Valley Hydroelectric Project is shown on the current slide. On the Potter Valley Hydroelectric webpage, you can find the notice of preparation that we issued on September 22nd, 2025. The notice of preparation has information on how to subscribe to our online notification system called Gov Delivery. If you sign up for Gov Delivery, they will send you emails related to the Potter Valley Hydroelectric Project and other projects pursuing certifications managed by the Division of Water Rights. As a reminder, we are accepting written comments until 4 p.m. on November 3rd, 2025, regarding the range of alternatives, potential significant effects, and mitigation measures that should be analyzed in the environmental impact report. Directions on how to submit comments by email or hard copy mail are shown on this slide right now. So thank you for your attention. Before we open the floor to public comments, I would like to go over some reminders. Please use the microphone to speak if you are providing comments in person. Please wait until you're asked to be unmuted to provide your comments. Be sure to state and spell your name out before you provide your comments. Please stick to your allotted time and respect all speakers' points of views. Written comments are accepted if you do not wish to speak today.
Do we have anyone in the room that wants to provide comments today? Doesn't look like it.
Okay, anyone on the Zoom who would like to provide comments today, please use the raised hand functionality.
Okay, so I have someone with the name Roar, R-O-A-R. I'm going to unmute you now. You have 5 minutes to provide your comment.
Hi, my name's Emily Wood, EMILYWOOD, and I'm co-director of a small community group called ROAR, which stands for Revitalizing Opportunities for the Alder Point Region. ROAR's mission is ecological restoration for Alder Point, which lies adjacent to the main stem Eel River. My kids are fifth-generation Alder Point community members and have grown up beside the eel. For Alder Point parents, the state of the eel feels terrible because by default, because we felt powerless to change it, we're teaching our kids by our example that a dammed and damaged river is normal. My kids have never known the eel as it should be, clear, cold, healthy, and alive. By July, Alder Point's stretch of river is so low, warm, and swampy that it is unsafe. Fish die, kids get rashes and infections from swimming in it. Our pet dogs get sick and sometimes even die after ingesting small amounts of water while they swim. None of that is natural or okay, and it's the direct result of these dams. The eel, or the hot show, as Alder Point's tribal members call it, holds state and federal wild and scenic designations. meant to protect its scenic, wildlife, and cultural values. But those values are disregarded every day that the Potter Valley Project dams remain. I am also part of the Blackfeet Nation. Our tribe believes that rivers are our relatives. They have a spirit and a voice. The eel, the hot show, deserves to be treated as a beloved living relative, not as a broken utility. Globally, more and more nations are recognizing that truth through law, that rivers have rights equivalent to human rights, and so must be protected from harm. Our river deserves no less. As the State Water Board considers the Section 401 water quality certification, please act as guardians of a living river, not just regulators of a project. Use current reduced diversions as a baseline and move swiftly toward dam removal. We can manage sediment responsibly and support habitat recovery with care, but we shouldn't wait another day, let alone another month or longer. For all the children along the Eels Riverbank, let's restore the hot show without delay. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Next, I have Glenn Spain.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My name is Glenn Spain, Glen, first name, Spain, Spain, last name. I'm the General Legal Counsel for the Pacific Coast Federation of Fishermen's Associations, PCFFA, and Institute for Fisheries Resources, its sister organization. Both these organizations are based in the commercial fishing industry up and down the coast, which has been deeply affected by problems in the Eel River for more than 100 years. We urge the board to frame the water quality certification not just as a construction permit, but as a watershed restoration tool. The damage that's been done to the river and the consequent damage to the fishing industry has been enormous. Over the last 100 years, we have plunged the populations from a high of about 800,000 returning adults to just most recently and then improved at 9,500. That's a little less than 2% of historic abundance. As a result, we've lost major fisheries in Northern California, not only directly because there are no fish coming out of the Eel River that can be caught, but because they are ESA listed, they trigger restrictions up and down the coast through weak stock management and through ESA obligations to avoid major portions of the harvest of otherwise abundant fish. That has cost our industry roughly $80 million a year for the duration of the dams. $80 million in lost coastal economics in today's dollars and over 1,500 family wage jobs. I want to talk about baselines. The natural erosion system of the eel was one of the largest systems in California. It was noted, it was one study concluded that it was very sediment rich. As much as 16 million tons of sediment transported annually by the river naturally before the dams existed. The baseline for determining sediment loads should be that natural erosion flow. And we'll supply the study that conclusion came from in our written comments. The reason the PG&E is removing the dams is because they're too expensive to operate. Frankly, they're not operating at all, have not generated power since 2021. The amount of water diverted to the river is on the order of 40,000 acre feet. This should be the baseline for conditions that you compare to. The baseline is current operations of the project, which essentially is obsolete and no longer operating. The geographic scope of your analysis is important too. You have to look at all the impacts that come out of the dams in the river. That means all the things that wash down the river. Sediment washes down the river, poor water quality washes down the river to the estuary. So you have to consider everything to the estuary as the potential impact geographical area, as well as the fisheries. Salmon that came out of the Eel River migrated far north and far south. If those salmon are there, that would be a positive impact for coastal salmon-dependent communities like my people work in and live in all up and down the coast. So this was, by the way, was the analysis that was done in the Klamath Project. You look at the analysis including the impact of fisheries. That's really important to really capture the ultimate impacts of positive and negative. The other thing is you need to consider not only the impacts on the project, but the impacts of the cost of doing nothing, essentially. What are the damages that we have? Those are where we're trying to move away from through restoration of the salmon runs and restoration of the river. You have to have not only the positive, but the negatives. Economists, natural resource economists have made this point many times. And there are guidances for what needs to be included in a legitimate cost-benefit analysis. That means not only just the cost, but the benefits as well. And one of the benefits is that the river will improve, and that will restore not only river conditions, but community health up and down the river, all the way to the estuary, and hopefully fisheries, which have a positive impact if they're improved all up and down the coast. The short-term impacts of sediment is of concern. We had that same concern in the Klamath. You'll recognize me, by the way, because I was frequently before the board on Klamath issues. I would look to and recommend you look to the Klamath sediment mitigation plan. It's working. The total exceedance of water quality standards has been on the matter of days to hours since dam removal. The river is now meeting water quality standards in more than 95% of the time and is in better condition today than it was pre-dam. I would look to that definitely, and we'll make that point in our comments as well. Finally, I think you just need to make sure that you take into account the benefits of dam removal. This is a project that probably should never have been built. It has had massive destructive impacts up and down the river and needs to be taken out, frankly. And there's no time to lose because these salmon are ESA listed. They are on the verge of extinction, not just the Chinook, but the coho and steelhead as well. So all of these things need to be moving forward. And there are many ways to mitigate sediment load impacts. There are many ways proposed to mitigate impacts of landowners around Lake Pillsbury. All of those should be considered, but we can't waste time getting this done. We have to move forward as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. So next I have Abigail Black.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Abigail Black, and I'm speaking on behalf of Save California Salmon. Save California Salmon is a nonprofit dedicated to policy change and community advocacy for Northern California salmon and fish-dependent people, including tribes. We support the fisheries and water protection work of the local communities and advocate for effective policy change for clean water, restored fisheries, and vibrant communities. The Eel River is the third largest river entirely in California and once sustained thriving runs of salmon and steelhead that have supported tribal communities, local economies, and ecosystems across 5 counties. For more than a century, Scott and Cape Horn dams have blocked more than 280 miles of spawning and rearing habitat. Downstream temperatures have been raised up to 10 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer months. Sediment delivery needed for gravel formation has been reduced, and toxic methylmercury buildup in aquatic food webs is now a serious problem. The result is near collapse of the once abundant salmon runs. We now have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to restore this river and return salmon to their ancestral waters. The Potter Valley Project no longer produces hydropower, and PG&E has confirmed that Scott Dam poses significant seismic risks. Removal of both dams would protect public safety, restore natural flows, and support tribal fishing and cultural practices. When it comes to the Section 401 water quality certification, this is California's most direct tool to ensure this project truly restores the watershed. Short-term construction impacts are real, but evidence from the Klamath River shows that a strong 401 oversight can minimize them while achieving lasting improvements to water quality and river health. The board should frame this process not as a construction permit, but as a watershed restoration opportunity. Further, the 401 scope should remain focused on dam removal, and any new diversions should be a separate project. We urge the board to ensure that the environmental impact report includes full analysis of sediment release, downstream water quality, and the cumulative effects of dam removal and ongoing water diversions. It should also assess long-term flow restoration for salmon and not just survival-based flows. Further, the EIR should center tribal leadership, prioritize fish passage and cold water habitat restoration, and guarantee enforceable mitigation measures that protect both people and ecosystems throughout the decommissioning process. This is our chance to heal the eel and honor the communities that have cared for it since time immemorial. Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. So next I have Sarah Bates.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to comment this afternoon. My name is Sarah Bates, S-A-R-A-H-B-A-T-E-S. I fish commercially out of San Francisco, and I'm also representing PCFFA and IFR today. San Francisco is a long way from the Eel River, but we catch all of our fish in the ocean. My biggest fishery is salmon fishing, Chinook salmon specifically in California. And the Eel River is the largest component of the California coastal Chinook evolutionarily significant unit. And this ESU is critical to our ocean fisheries for a couple of reasons. One is that it is the constraining stock for our mixed ocean fisheries, and fish have tails, they all come out of their river, they mix in the ocean. And when we are fishing, we don't have the ability to decide which river we are targeting the fish from. So because this ESU is listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act, we are heavily constrained in all of our ocean fisheries, both recreational and commercial, due to the low population numbers of the California coastal Chinook. The second reason that the coastal Chinooks are important to our ocean fisheries is that they are a potential contributor to harvest. Glenn mentioned some of this already, but historically we had 800,000 adults in the ocean that came out of the Eel River. And this is a potential contributor to our harvest statewide. And the economics of this are a multi-billion-dollar industry and direct support of coastal communities throughout California. True recovery of the Eel River ecosystems need to incorporate habitat restoration, spawning recruitment, which can look like a lot of things. It can look like egg injection in the gravel. It can look like adult trap and haul. It can look like stream side hatch boxes. All of those need to be worked out with the various agencies. But all of this habitat restoration and spawning recruitment starts with dam removal. We need to bring the river back to its original state. And there will undoubtedly be a lot of short-term impacts, which are very real, but these short-term impacts can be mitigated or minimized with thoughtful planning. And I think, to Glenn's point, that we have a lot of lessons that we can learn from the successful dam removal on the Klamath last year. And the short-term impacts will be greatly outweighed by the long-term beneficial uses and watershed protections. You may know that our commercial salmon fisheries in California have been completely closed for 3 years now. And we're playing the long game here. We are actually really excited about some of the investments in the ecosystem and the economies of the local economies and the state economies that can benefit from this Eel River Dam removal. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, I have Nicole Whipple.
Mahim, Sintamana Ke Kanema, Nicole Anna, Round Valley Ke Anna. My name is Nicole Whipple, NIKCOLE, WHIPPLE, and I am a member of the Round Valley Indian Tribes. And today I'm speaking as a tribal member. So the Round Valley Indian Tribes, located in Round Valley, Mendocino County, is, one of the first reservations to be created by executive order. Our tribe represents 7 different tribes and many more. Federally, we recognize 7 tribes who are all connected to the Eel River. One of those tribes, which I hold is very dear and close to my heart, is the Yuki tribe. The Potter Valley Project sits on top of a Yuki site, and historically, the Yuki people were one of the first people in California to be harmed by the first court justice, Hastings. So as we talk about the importance of this dam and the dam removal, and I thank you to all of the board members who are upholding their tribal trust responsibilities in assuring that this project moves forward and in a quick process. I ask that you truly consider the artifacts and the sites that have been sitting underwater in this project. I ask that you understand that as as it was shared in the beginning of this presentation about water rights and how they apply to the state and how the state is overseas and then applies to the federal government, to understand that water rights are the entitlement authorizing water usage, but these are only property rights and holders do not own the water. They own the right to use. And as tribal people, we, to reiterate from our previous commenter that, we see the water as having rights of its own and needing protection as well as respected as a living being. So while the California State Water Board may be called upon to adjudicate California water rights, in respect to tribal water rights, both state and federal laws apply. And in Winters, the Supreme Court held that federally reserved lands have a right to use sufficient water to fill the primary purpose of the reservation, claiming that tribal water rights cannot be destroyed by state water law or by water users acting in accordance with state law. As we talk more about state processes and basin plans, that was another conversation that was brought up, or another example of talking about, this Eel River sits in the North Coast Regional Basin. I've had the opportunity to do quite a bit of studying and research on our Eel River and found that our basin plans are basically non-existent. The TMDLs, there are 5 TMDLs because the Eel River is the 3rd largest salmon-bearing river in California. And while the TMDLs prove and provide that, there is significant loads of erosion and things that will happen in our river naturally, they have been altered in this dam. And so it is fearful because we know that is happening. That's what's at the bottom of this dam, and it's kind of scary to think of, given that these TMDLs have been in place for a while, that all of these sediment is sitting. But that is part of the natural flow of the river and what it's intended to do, part of the natural filtration system. And, I'll say it again, there is no alternative other than to take this dam down. But looking at alternatives in the process of removing the dam, I ask that the board consider heavily weighing in on the tribes who are a part of this river in identifying our respected tribal cultural resources and tribal beneficial uses, and understand how important it is that we return those resources to this riparian area and protect that area and move as quickly as possible in a time that will not harm our fish species. And with that, I just ask for better water quality scoping and testing to happen. We are very well aware that throughout the state, particularly, in the neighboring county or county of Lake, that there are major, major concerns of cyanobacteria as well as microcystin. And, we've been told by other tribes that there is, existing mercury and arsenic, and just finding ways to, again, understand that the natural system of this river is to be flowing through this heavily sediment um, flowing river as part of its natural cleansing. But being cognizant and acknowledging that those things are there and that we need to move with caution to not spread, and think about the quality of the water that is being diverted. Thank you for your time. Kariwudim.
Thank you, Nicole. So I don't have any additional hands, but if you'd like to provide comments, please use the raise hand function, and then I will unmute you.
All right, well, looks like we don't have any other hands. Oh, we have one more. Spoke too soon.
All right. I have Regina from Save California Salmon.
Hi, sorry I was unable to unmute. Can you hear me? Hello? Hi, can you hear me? Oh, okay. Sorry. I wasn't sure. I apologize. I had some slides I wanted to show since we're online, but I didn't realize that wasn't possible. I should have reached out. I will email them in. And I did talk in Fortuna quickly the other day, so I'll try to be very quick. But my name is Regina Chicazola, CHI again, ZOLA, and I'm with Save California Salmon. And I was trying to wait to the end because I have some additional comments based on the fact I can hear a lot better on this hearing, and also that I've had some time to go over some data from the Klamath River. Um, and also, there was a few concerns that I had after the last hearing. So first, I want to thank you for starting this 401 certification process in such a timely manner. It's very important that we get these dams out as quickly as possible. I agree with Glenn Spain's comment that these dams should not have been allowed to be built in the first place. It's such a massive impact for what was a very little amount of power generation. And it also takes so much of the Eel River's flow out of the river, which I know the water issues are not part of this process, but I do think recommendations for in-stream flows should be something that's considered as part of the permitting, because as we know, water quality and water quantity is so deeply connected. I agree with the comments that this should be a restoration focused process, and I'm really glad to see that the restoration policy is being invoked. I do think that there are a lot of issues at hand. As we know, dams warm water, diversions warm water, and the Eel River has some major water quality issues, and in some years it even goes dry. And it's just been too long since people haven't been able to fish or swim in the river. And I appreciate the comments earlier from residents saying this. I wanted to encourage the board on top of other um, processes to make sure to meet with both recognized and non-recognized tribes within the Eel River watershed. As you are aware, there is a deep history of injustice towards tribes within this watershed. And then also, I just want to go through real quickly that on the Klamath, we've seen that the water quality impacts from dam removal have actually been much less than what could be than what we ever thought they would be. There was some spikes where dissolved oxygen went very low, but they were extremely short-term impacts. And this also the same is true with the sediment. We saw the sediment clear out extremely quickly. And even while dam removal was happening and this massive sediment load was going downriver on the Klamath, the river actually was colder and had better dissolved oxygen during times during dam removal than they had with the dams in. And so that's just a testimony of how important it is for dam removal to happen to actually meet beneficial uses in the Eel River watershed. With that said, I do agree the 401 certification and the really wonderful planning had a lot to do with why those short-term impacts were so quick and localized. And so with that, I would like the board to think about the fact that on the Klamath River, we did have the Klamath River Renewal Corporation, which had a lot of our local residents and tribal members and scientists as part of the KRRC. In this situation, we're looking at PG&E being in charge, and I think it's obvious to most people that they have a lot less care when they are interacting with communities, and especially a lot less care when they're interacting with rivers. So I would just like to see you make sure there's a really robust restoration plan to help deal with the sediments that are in the reservoir reaches. And just to make sure that that area can fully recover, because as Nicole said earlier, these are really important sites to the tribes, and they have the opportunity to also be really amazing areas for really robust restoration. In the Klamath, we've seen the reservoir sites are actually much more diverse and healthy than the areas around them because of the overgrazing and land impacts that have happened to the river. And some of the healthiest watersheds and habitat I've ever seen is actually where the reservoirs used to be. So having that restoration plan in place, though, is the reason why that happened. Also, I'd like to see a really well-done drawdown plan. And then, as I said, I think having in-stream flow recommendations or even requirements that are put into place, probably recommendations so that when the water rights process goes down, at least we know what the fish actually need, could be helpful. And then last I wanted to say, I think it's important when there's actually a plan that comes out that we look closely at the board's racial equity plan and racial equity action plan, because a resolution and action plan, because I think it would be good to have a little more notice, especially within the Eel River communities themselves. I thank you guys a lot for coming to the Eel River when we asked, but at the same time, because it wasn't much of a notice, it was very hard for people because it is such a remote and rural watershed to come out. So if we have some more notice and maybe even, some workshops where you explain what the actual process looks like and what the plans look like, I think it would really help with engagement. With that said, I just really want to thank you for being really focusing on water quality. The Eel River has been extremely polluted from lack of flow and from these dams for a very long time. And it's been someone at the Fortuna hearing said that they've lived in Lolita and it's been their entire lifetime since they've been able to fish on the river. And for the tribes, it's been several lifetimes now since they've been able to fish on the river. And I think actually meeting water quality standards and making sure to deal with the sediment and the pollution, toxic algae, and temperature issues will change that. And that can be done through dam removal and through protection of in-stream flows. So thank you so much for hearing me again. I will send in that slideshow since I can't show the slides, but I was just so impressed to see how quickly the salmon have come back and how quickly the water quality has rebounded on the Klamath. It's only been a year and it's just very amazing. And I can't wait to see the same thing happen on the Eel River because it's just been too long since people have felt comfortable with touching and interacting with their water there. Thank you.